Wait, where are we starting?
We are starting on PO20. So good morning. We are reviewing Unit 3. Unit 3 is from PO20 to PO28. So on your help sheet, you are going to want to write these divisibility rules. We are not using, let me double check what it says on the real test. So on the test, the first page is going to have 23, 24, and 25 on it. Where is, sugar pie. There's going to be a front page that is going to have 20, 21, and 22 on its own page. And then we're going to have the rest of the test. So on the first page that has these first three objectives, you cannot use your calculator. So you're going to have to do the math, tear off the front page of those three objectives, turn it into me, and then the rest of the packet, you'll be able to use your calculator. But to start off our test, there will be no calculator. So you need to know how to find if numbers are divisible by these. You will want to write these divisibility rules. How do we know if it's divisible by 2? Who can remind us? Adeline. If it's an even number, if it ends in a 0, 2, 4, 6, or 8. So you know it's divisible by 2 if that last number in the ones place is 0, 2, 4, 6, or 8. How do we know if it's divisible by 3, Emma? Yeah, if you add up all the digits and that total you can divide by 3. So if we look at the number 56, 5 plus 6 is 11. 11 is not divisible by 3. Right? 56 we don't know. 11 we do. It's a smaller number. We know that one. 123. 1 plus 2 plus 3 equals 6. 6 is divisible by 3, so we know it is divisible by 3. You will not have a calculator to check your work. How do we know if it's divisible by 4? You look at your divisibility rules. How do we know if it's divisible by 4? Lexi.
If the number can be divided by 2 twice.
The number can be divided by 2 twice. 42 is an even number. I know it's divisible by 2, but 42 divided by 2 is 21. 21 is not an even number, so it's not divisible by 4. How do we know if it's divisible by 5? Emma. The number ends in a 5 or a 0, we know it's divisible by 5. How do we know if it's divisible by 6? Emma? Yeah, if it's divisible by 2 and 3, we know it's going to be divisible by 6. So you don't have to do any math to see if it's divisible by 6. You just have to look back. Was it divisible by 2? Was it divisible by 3? How do we know if it's divisible by 9? Lexi?
If the sum of the number of digits, then it's divisible by 9.
Yeah, it's just like with the 3. If you add up the digits to find if it's divisible by 3, is that total divisible by 3? Same thing with the 9. Add up the digits, is that total divisible by 9? If it is not, it's not divisible by 9. And the easiest one, how do we know if it's divisible by 10? Natalie? If the number ends in a 0. So you can have all of these rules written on your card. And remember, when we go through that test, if you're given the number, let's say 506, you're going to write 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9, 10, and you're going to go through every rule. Why do I want you to write all of the numbers down like that, Adeline?
Because it helps you not skip any.
Exactly. It helps us stay organized so we don't skip a number. There's only going to be 4 questions on this objective. It's not going to take us that long. Do all the work so we don't mess it up. Okay? Look at that. A 6 in that ones place means it's divisible by 2. 5 plus 6 is 11, not divisible by 3. 506 divided by 2 would be 253, not an even number. Doesn't have a 5 or a 0. It's only divisible by 2, not by 3, so it can't be divisible by 6. 5 plus 6 is 11. 11 is not divisible by 9, and it does not end in a 0. So I can just run through each of those divisibility rules, crossing off the ones that don't work, circling the ones that do, and I know this number is only divisible by 2. So on the test tomorrow and on Wednesday, write out all the numbers, check the divisibility rules for each number. Have those divisibility rules on your card. Okay? Any questions on this one? All right, let's look at our next objective. I can identify prime and composite numbers. Write those definitions on your help sheet. What is a prime number? Now remember, keep your help sheets organized. Where you wrote your divisibility rules, put a PO20 and circle it. Now we're on CO21. Circle CO21 and write what it means to be prime and what it means to be composite. So you remember, who can tell us what does it mean to be a prime number? Adeline.
Nothing can go into it except for one.
Yeah, nothing, you can't be divided into anything except for itself and 1. You can't break it down any farther. So what does it mean to be composite? Emma?
You can make, there's multiple, there's different multiples that go into it, not into it.
There's other factor buddies that go into it, right? We have other factor pairs. So 27 can also be 9 times 3. So we know we can break it down further. It must be composite. Any questions on prime and composite? When you're solving for that prime and composite, you're going to look at those divisibility rules. So think to yourself, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9, 10. You don't have to write them all out. I would just start, let's see, is it divisible by 2? No. So is it divisible by 3? 7 plus 5 is 12. It's divisible by 3. It must be composite. Right? We come to 41. It's not divisible by 2. But for the 3, 4 plus 1 is 5, so not divisible by 3. 4, it's not even divisible by 2, so it can't be 4. 5, it doesn't end in a 5 or a 0. 6, not divisible by 2 or 3, so not the 6. 9, 4 plus 1 is 5, so it's not divisible by 9. 10, nope, doesn't end in a 0. So I cross all my numbers off. I know it's going to be prime. So the next one, 2, oh, it's an even number. I can stop right there. Right? Adeline? So start off with the 2, then the 3, then the 4, then the 5. Slowly go through them. You don't have to do every single one. Just start at the top. And the only time you're going to go through every single one is if it's a prime number. But you have to check to make sure that it's not divisible by any of those numbers. So go through the divisibility rules for every one. Any questions on that one? All right, next page. Next objective. I can find the prime factors of a number using that prime factorization. So remember, we want to make a factor tree. We want to break it down into all of its prime numbers. So you could write on your help sheet, make a factor tree. Okay? break it down to all prime numbers. So remember what that looks like. I have a 12. What is a factor buddy pair for 12? I know Emma can tell me. Who else can tell me what a factor pair for 12 is? What two numbers can I multiply together to get 12? Maddie? 6 and 2. Can I break the 6 down farther? What two numbers can I multiply, Natalie? 3 and 2. Can I break this 2 down any farther? Nope, so I'm just gonna bring that 2 down. 3 I can't break down, 2 I can't break down, and 2 I can't break down. So my prime factorization, all of my prime factors are 3 times 2 times 2. So you make your tree, breaking down all the numbers so they're just prime numbers. And what you're left with at the bottom of your tree are your prime factors for that number. How can we check if we did it right? Lila?
You can do the equation.
Yeah. You can do 3 times 2 is 6. 6 times 2 is 12. That got me my number on top. So I know I did the correct prime numbers. Okay. So your way of checking your work is multiplying out all of those primes. Make sure you're getting that number at the top. Next objective. Ooh, greatest common factor. When I was walking around and looking at that review for the objective we corrected today, I saw some people put the least common multiple instead of the greatest common factor. So you have to remember, CO23 is the greatest common factor. Factors are going to be smaller than the number that you start with. It's the ones that you break it down to. So we could do that prime factorization doing the tree and comparing which numbers they have in common. So I could do my factor tree for 18. Let's do 3 and 6. So that would be 2. 3 times 2 times 3. If I did 15, that would be 3 times 5. So this prime factors are 3 and 5. I go through and see what factors they share. They share just a 3. So the greatest common factor is 3. If I have 42 and 30, that could be 2 and 21, 2, 3, 7. Here, 30 would be 2 and 15. Keep that 2 down. 15 goes down to 3 and 5, so I have 2, 3, and 5. I look to see what factors they share in common. They share a 2. They share a 3. I multiply any factors that they share in common together. And my greatest common factor is 6. You could also do the listing method. Remember, when we list, you have to be careful that you don't miss any factors. So you have to make sure that you're listing all the factors of the number. And let me remind us how to do our table. We look to see what number can I pull out of 21 and 35. I can pull a 7 out. 21 divided by 7 is 3. 35 divided by 7 is 5. I can't pull anything out of the 3 and the 5. So I know that it's just that number on the left. If I did pull a number out here, I would multiply any numbers that I pulled out. Okay? So remember, greatest common factor, we just multiply the numbers that we pull out. Any questions on greatest common factor? You can use whichever method you want. You will get the same answer. So whichever one you're comfortable with, prime factorization, the listing, or the table. Do not confuse greatest common factor with CO24, least common multiple. So least common multiple, we are multiplying up. So when we are multiplying up, you can do that listing method. Remember, when we're listing here, instead of listing factors, we're listing our multiples. So taking that first number and multiplying it up. 6 times 1, 6 times 2, 6 times 3, 6 times 4. Do the same thing for the 8 and see what the smallest number that they share is. You can also do the table method. So if we have 7 and 5, I can't pull anything out of 7 and 5, so I am just doing the bottom that I multiply together. That least common multiple is going to be 35. If I look at 6 and 14, I can pull a 2 out. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 14 divided by 2 is 7. I cannot pull anything else out. So remember, least common multiple, I make my L. And I multiply everything in that L. So everything on the left and the bottom row. So it's different than the greatest common factor. Greatest common factor, you just multiply the stuff you pulled out. Least common multiple, you make your L, and you multiply everything in the L. Any questions on that one? All right. CO25, ratios to compare two numbers. Remember, there are 3 ways to make a ratio. You need to write this down for CO25. Ratio can be with a colon, with the word to, or as a fraction. You cannot put down examples. Okay, remember, we don't write examples on our help sheets, but it will ask you to do a ratio in 2 different ways. So you need to use colon, the word to, or a fraction. James?
Can you wait till we're done with this?
Okay. Remember to simplify. So put that reminder on your help sheet. Simplify with an exclamation point. If it is not in simplest form, it will be wrong. So make sure you simplify just like we simplify fractions. Simplify, simplify, simplify. So you need to know what the 3 different ways are: the colon, the words, or the fraction. And you need to remember to simplify. Any questions on this one? Remember, we always put it in order of the words. If it says red marbles to blue marbles, our first number is going to be red, our second number is going to be blue. So you might want to make a note, put in order. Okay, so whatever the question is, put your answer in the same order as the question. So your answer has to be in the order of the question. So if it said blue marbles to red, you have to make sure that you do it backwards. Okay? So it might tell you there are 5 red marbles and 7 blue marbles. How many blue to red? You have to look. If it says blue first, you have to put the blue number first. Even though in the information, it told us the red number first. If the question says blue first, you put the blue number first. I'm going over this for a reason. Why do you think I'm going over this so much?
Who knows what's on the test?
I know what's on the test. I know there will be at least one question where it's going to say that second number is going to be your first one that you have to put in your answer. So you need to understand that. Even though the information gives us the 5 red first, our question is how many blue, so I have to put it blue first. So go in the order of the question, not the information given. CO26, I can identify, write, and find equivalent ratios. So write CO26 on your help sheet and wrote just like equivalent fractions. Multiply the top and the bottom by the same number. So it's just like those equivalent fractions. You're multiplying or dividing all the numbers by the same number. Equivalent fraction, you multiply the numerator by 2, you have to multiply the denominator by 2. Ratios, you multiply one side by 2, you have to multiply the other side by 2. And remember, a lot of us got messed up on this when we did equivalent fractions. If the directions say to give 2, you must give 2, not just 1. Multiply them both by 2, multiply them both by 3. Multiply them both by 10. Multiply them both by 5. Whatever works for you, make sure you do 2 different sets of equivalent ratios. So read the directions carefully. Do we have to simplify equivalent ratios? No, it's the one time I say do not simplify. Right? Equivalent fractions, equivalent ratios, we do not simplify those. Because otherwise they'll all be the same. CO27, rates and unit rates. So CO27, remember to label. So put that on your help sheet. Don't forget to label. So labeling is a big thing. And if it is a unit rate, so remember, when it's rates, you're just multiplying by the same number. If it is a unit rate, what must be on the bottom to be a unit rate? Everybody look at CO27. What do we have to have as our denominator to be a unit rate? Liam, a 1. So remember, if it is a whole number as your denominator, we're dividing. So put that on your help sheet. Whole number as the denominator, you divide by it. Whatever you divide the bottom by, you divide the top by. If there is a fraction on the denominator, we multiply because we want to get it to 1 whole. So we have to multiply up. If you multiply in the denominator, you have to multiply your numerator. So remember, whole numbers we divide, fractions we multiply. So I know there's some of us not making help sheets, there's some of us not writing down my tips. I'm doing these tips for a reason. You might think, yeah, I know it, I got it. But come the test tomorrow, you're gonna forget things. So it's always a good idea to write down the tips that I give. Whether or not you have to use it, it's there just in case. Because we can easily forget things. Any questions on the rates and unit rates? Make sure you label. If muffins are on top here, we have to have muffins on top. If pans are on the bottom, we have to have pans on the bottom. So label and make sure that you are doing it correctly. Same thing with proportions for CO28. Label it. Remember, whatever we multiply one side to get over to, we multiply the top by, right? Top and bottom, we multiply by the same number. If we don't know what to multiply by, we work backwards and divide, just like we did on the homework for this page. If you don't know what to multiply up by, go backwards and divide, and that'll tell you what to multiply the other number by. any questions? Okay, I'm going to stop the recording, because that's all the objectives on the test. Tomorrow is that practice test. You need to be honest with yourself and see how you do with that practice test to see if you need to add to your help sheet. That real test is on Wednesday. It is right before the end of the trimester, and I don't want people stressing out about the test. And oh my goodness, what if I get a bunch of objectives wrong and I have to do retakes, but I'm gonna be gone on Monday and Tuesday of next week, so I don't know if I can get all my retakes done. I don't wanna have a bad test score. This test will be on trimester 2's report card. Okay, so we will have time to do our retakes. I know it's the end of the trimester. I am not expecting us to get all of our retakes done before the end of tri. So just know, this score will be our first trimester 2 score. So we will have time to do retakes. But let's see if we can have the least amount of retakes that we can. Let's really study and prepare for this test. Remember, Khan Academy is due Thursday night. Packet number 4 is due on Friday. So remember to get those done. If you are watching this at home, you go home tonight to add to your help sheet, because we went kind of fast in class. I'm recording it so you can add to it tonight. If you're listening to this at home and you still have questions, make sure you come see me. Make sure that you get your questions answered before the test. I hope you are well, and I hope to see you soon. Have a wonderful day.